It's the internet, you're busy. Let's do this for August 22nd, 2024. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, college football is saving video games in 2024, while Nintendo shuts down another video game later this year. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host to Game Mess Mornings. It's Britton Peele, everybody. Britton, how are you doing? Oh, the multiple B's in there got me all mixed up.
I'm doing great. Yeah, it's a good morning.
Britton, I've been following you for a long time on social media. I know you've been writing about games for a long time, but why don't you tell people about yourself a little bit real quick before we get into the show?
Yeah, totally. I have been in the industry for a while, mostly as a freelancer. I wrote for GameSpot for a good long time, doing reviews. Lately, I've been way more behind the scenes. I was at the Dallas Morning News for a while, and I'm still in Dallas. Nowadays, I'm actually working for Chicago Public Media. So if you're in Chicago and you read the Chicago Sun-Times or you listen to WBEZ on the radio, I'm doing a lot of tech stuff behind the scenes there. Working
cool.
with engineers and designers and the newsroom, making sure everything runs smoothly. So we've been really busy with the DNC in Chicago this week, but I'm alive. I'm here, happy about it. So things have been going well.
Excellent. That's awesome. Yeah. How did you when you were kind of looking at the video game landscape and kind of continuing working in this business back when that was something you were considering? How were you viewing it at that time? Because it's always something man, it's got to be rough to be a freelancer. Was it?
Yeah, definitely. And it was a thing that for a while I was just I'm a huge fan of sites like GameSpot. So I was just even if I don't make it a career, if I can get my byline on there, I'll be pretty happy. It'll be a goal accomplished. So I was pretty excited even just with that. And then, I tend to describe my career as a lot of tripping and falling into other things.
Oh yeah, same.
That's definitely how the product management stuff started. I was working at, a mainstream news outlet. So covering games there, very different than covering it for a place like Giant Bomb, because you have to explain, Mario games still get made. It's not just still the N64. It's not just Pac-Man and Pong anymore.
It's not, video games are not just Pac-Man anymore.
Right. It was a lot of those, with colleagues in an office. But I was someone who understood how the internet worked, so I just kind of accidentally kept being the guy that was oh, you understand the CMS. Can you teach everyone else how to use it? Can you talk to the engineers about the needs we have for it? And so, one thing just kind of kept leading to another to where now that's my job. So it's the bummer is that it leaves a lot less time to write about games, which I still love doing. But that's why sometimes I just, hit you up in Discord DMs and say, hey, let me come talk about games for a while, please. I really miss it. I need my fix.
Yeah, and I think it's ideal. We're happy to have you on the show. Very excited. What are you playing right now?
I have been playing a lot of GameCube games, actually, because Retro Achievements added support for those.
Yes, they did.
So I beat Chibi Robo for the first time, which
how was it?
I hadn't done as a kid.
Yeah, because I've never beat it either.
It holds up surprisingly well. I think definitely if they were to go back and remake it or remaster it, there's a lot of quality of life things they could do. But it gave me that feeling, when that same era when you discover Katamari Damacy and you're just this is so weird and cool and cute at the same time. And why isn't the whole world talking about this? It gave those sorts of vibes in the right way, where I just had a lot of fun with
Katamari.
it.
Yeah, we have a news story about it, but there might be a new way to play those GameCube games from Retroid Pocket. That I'm looking at the thing. I'm I hope this thing can run GameCube games because they'll be really good. But we'll get to that here pretty soon. In fact, why don't we explain what we do here? Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you were watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with the July 2024 U.S. video game market highlights from Matt Piscatella over at Circana, which was once the NPD Group. July 2024 U.S. market highlights. Projected U.S. spending on video game hardware, content, and accessories reached $4.8 billion in July 2024. What's notable there is that that's up 10% when compared to a year ago. Pretty big, like one of the first double digits increases we've seen year over year this year. And year-to-date spending is now 2% higher than a year ago at $32.1 billion. Although I saw elsewhere, Matt said he still thinks for the whole year, once we're fully through December, spending's probably going to be down. This holiday may not be as strong as last holiday. He's got charts on his Twitter profile where he puts a lot of the stuff where it shows, that 10% increase for the total market, 10% increase for video game content, 12% increase year over year for video game hardware, and 4% increase for video game accessories. Big part of that is the video game content spending increased 10% in July compared to a year ago, as 29% growth in console content spending and an 8% increase in mobile was partially offset by a 6% drop in spending on PC, cloud, and non-console VR content. A lot of numbers. We'll get into the big reason why here in a second. EA Sports College Football 25. Other big things on the chart, though. Number one was EA Sports College Football 25. What's incredible is that it was also number two, technically, because EA Sports MVP Bundle, which is College Football 25 and Madden NFL 25, or 2025, whatever they're going to call that. They put the ultimate editions of both games in one bundle and sold that, and so it was pretty expensive. I think it was like $100 and some odd to get both these things together. But it was a big discount if you want to play both these games early and get all the extra content. But yeah, that was number two, and of course, this chart is sorted by dollar sales. Britton, are you someone that enjoys sports video games, college football? Is that something you were looking forward to? Do you have anyone in your life that does?
I do have people in my life that do. I definitely have actually an old newspaper colleague who, until very recently, probably until this release, he would bust out his Xbox 360 and just play whatever, the last college football game was. And he would post on Facebook about it, talk about how his season was going. Like, he was invested.
There's a community still for that, and they some people would update their game with the current rosters and stuff like that, because you could do that just in the game. Yeah, it was huge still.
Totally. And so, when he would try to talk to me about games, you'd be like, well, I've got my game, my one game that I play. Right. So I'm very happy for him and the people like him. And it seems like there's a lot of people like him who were just clamoring for this because, the sales are kind of crazy.
And it's actually way more than even that. We'll get into it, because Matt's going to have his take on it here in a second. There's some pretty astonishing numbers for just how well this thing did. But let's the rest of the chart real quick. Elden Ring, number 3, after being number 1 last month when the expansion dropped. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, the 2023 edition, was number 4. Minecraft number 5, and number 6 was basically the only other new release in the chart, the physical only version of Nintendo World Championship NES Edition, which is pretty impressive for that game because it's technically a $30 game. And you were supposed to get it digitally only if that's what you wanted. But if you wanted the premium edition that came with a bunch of extra stuff, it was $60. It was a pretty clever move by Nintendo, I thought, to be like, price it at the normal price of a video game, call it a collector's edition, add some really cool stuff in there. Not as cool as the Japanese version, which got the Famicom controllers, but still pretty cool stuff. And it did really well on the chart, all things considered, better than I was expecting. What do you think?
I'd echo everything you said. Better than I was expecting, for sure. I was one of the people who bought that $60 edition
I bought both. Yes, I bought that and the $30 digital edition. So, because I wanted it as soon as possible, and then I knew the physical edition would come a couple days later. So just a second.
But I knew. I have not been as obsessed as you and Dan. And I watched some of y'all's videos on that. But I have checked the leaderboards and stuff like that, and been kind of wondering in the back of my mind how is this doing? Because is it too just appealing to freaks like us who really care about the old stuff and want to get every millisecond off our time, or is it actually going to have some broader appeal? So I was pleasantly just surprised to see it on this list.
Yep. The rest of the list is a lot of basically the regular Rogues Gallery, Hogwarts Legacy, then a lot of sports games, MLB The Show, EA Sports FC, Spider-Man 2, Mortal Kombat 1, Mario Kart 8. Again, physical only for a Switch game, is number 12. Helldivers 2 is still number 13 after being 11th last month. Tekken 8 jumped from 30th to 14th. Luigi's Mansion 2, number 15. Sea of Thieves, UFC 5, Rainbow Six Siege, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege, The Crew Motorfest, and Ghost of Tsushima at number 20. This is kind of how it goes right now, Britton, where there are a handful of new games that do pop onto the list, and then the rest of the chart usually is stuff that's been selling since at least last year, but in a lot of cases for like the last 3, 4, 5, and in the case of Mario Kart and Grand Theft Auto, the last 10 years. So although Grand Theft Auto is that on the list, I feel like they stopped reporting physical sales on that or digital sales on that, so they don't actually have it on here.
And even some of the new stuff, Luigi's Mansion 2 is new, but not new.
Right,
it's an interesting time for
like
sure.
3. Oh, yeah, Luigi's Mansion 2, you're right, that's the remake. Yeah, I was thinking 3, yes. Right, new, but yeah, that's just kind of a re-release. All right, EA Sports College Football 25 debuted as the best-selling game of 2024 year-to-date and was the primary driver of both content and hardware growth on console platforms. Realize what happened this month is this game immediately became the best-selling game of the year, outselling Helldivers 2. Helldivers 2, a $40 game, and a lot of those sales. I think they probably did report the Steam sales, so that would include that. But still, $40 game. Obviously, EA Sports College Football was going to have an advantage there, but that's just not what was happening. This game was a unprecedented success in a lot of ways, where it was enough to juice the numbers for everything across the board. The reason console sales were up in the month was EA Sports College Football. The reason accessory sales were up 4% is because of college football and people buying new controllers. It's that big of a deal. Matt Piscatello continues and says, launch month dollar sales of EA Sports College Football 25 more than tripled the total lifetime dollar sales of the previous best-selling college football game, NCAA College Football 07. The lifetime sales tripled for the best-selling previous version of this series. It is enormous for 1 month. That speaks to a couple of things, right, Britton? More people playing games than ever, and really college football more popular than ever, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm in Texas, so I have to acknowledge that football has a lot of power.
Yeah.
It'll get people out of their seats and buying things. So I guess not a shock, but yeah, those numbers are massive, especially when you consider how many people probably did need to go out and buy a new console.
That's right.
So it's hundreds
this is not
of
on
dollars.
PS4, not on Xbox One. It's only on the Xbox Series XS and PS5.
Yeah, that's wild. But good on them for seeing the opportunity and taking it finally.
Britton, what do you think this says about where video games are at in 2024 in terms of, we have a story coming up next. It's a story we've done a bunch of times, actually, and we're just going to kind of check in on it. That, hey, everyone's waiting for Grand Theft Auto 6 and Switch 2 to save the industry. But this game comes along and just completely dominates. It seems like people want to be playing video games. They really want to be. Do you think that this speaks to that, and that kind of people are just waiting for the thing that does speak to them?
I certainly hope that's the case, at least, because I love video games and I want everyone else to love them too. The college football stuff might be a little bit of more of an edge case, just because that there are those sports gamers that that is all they're gonna play. But once you have them in that ecosystem and they've got the console already, it is easier to maybe entice them. Say, hey, while you're here, we've got this other thing. And what that other thing is could be surprising. A buddy of mine that I've known for a long time, who is this more like very mainstream casual gamer who usually only plays like the sports games and so on, also a really big Civilization fan. So maybe when Civ 7 comes out, some of those people will be like, hey, actually, I remember playing Civ years ago. Yeah. Maybe I'll get that too. And now you at least have a second game that they're invested in.
Yep, and I think that's why Take-Two is like, our next year is going to be huge because we might have Grand Theft Auto 5 or Grand Theft Auto 6, Civilization 7, and Borderlands 4, and all of those are just kind of 4-quadrant games in a lot of ways for their respective genres, right? Civilization is just the strategy game for a lot of people, and you can always see that by seeing the concurrent player numbers on Steam or whatever, which is always in the multiple tens of thousands. Real quick, EA Sports MVP bundle, the dual pack that we talked about, which includes EA Sports College Football 25 Deluxe Edition and Madden NFL 25 Deluxe Edition, ranked second among July's best-selling titles, but it also placed it as fifth for 2024's best-selling game so far this year. So, yeah, just wild stuff there. The only other new release to rank among the top 20 was the Nintendo World Championship. July video game hardware spending, this is for hardware now, grew 12% when compared to a year ago to $326 million. Growth in spending on PlayStation 5, which was up 25% versus a year ago. Xbox Series, which is up 48% compared to a year ago, was partially offset by a 44% drop in spending on Switch. Everyone has a Switch. We know that's the story. That's not some like sound the alarms. Everyone gets what's happening there. Pretty impressive for the Xbox though to be up 44%. I think what you mentioned about like some people still just playing Madden or NCAA College Football 14, I think it was, on their 360. I think a lot of those people still associate college football with Xbox, and that might have helped the Xbox. Of course, the other factor is the Xbox just has more room to grow because it wasn't selling as fast as the PS5 last year, but pretty good for that. Yeah, so PlayStation 5 led the month's hardware market in unit and dollar sales, with the Xbox Series ranking second across both measures. July 2024 is the first month with year-on-year growth in video game hardware spending since the 2% increase seen during December 2023. So first time this year we've actually seen hardware sales grow faster than they did last year. But big part of that is that's just not the Switch. Like the Switch is definitely dragging it down the most, but we've seen each month both the Xbox and PlayStation be down year over year in terms of the number of systems sold. Consumer spending on accessories grew 4% in July when compared to a year ago to $184 million. Leading the year-on-year spending gains for accessories were the remote play device segment, like the PlayStation Portal, and gamepads, which gamepads were up 6%. And again, I think that's all NCAA, or college football, I should say. NCAA is basically dead. PlayStation Portal was the best-selling accessory in dollar sales for both July and 2024 year-to-date. That thing seems like a stealth success at this point. What do you think?
I was thinking about that because, the only other time I've been on this show was showing off the PlayStation Portal, and I'm pretty sure I said at the time, like, I like this thing, but I don't know who it's for. Like, it seems like a very niche product, and then it's always sold out everywhere. So it's really been, I think, a pleasant surprise, because I do think it's got its problems for sure, but like I played a lot of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on my Portal, and I'll use it every now and then just to play games in a different room, because it helps me anyway that I don't have a Steam Deck, so like I rely on the Switch, and if I want to play something beefier than the Switch, I'd need something like the Portal. And it works well for my use case. So, it's interesting that it's seeing the success that it is. Yeah,
I was going to say, I keep thinking I should get a PlayStation Portal. And every time I think that, I'm like, no, save your money, you idiot. Or I have the Steam Deck and it works great on there. And of course, Chuck Tasky in chat's like, PlayStation Portal for normal people and Steam Deck for nerds. So you got me.
Sure.
You got me. But that's true. The Steam Deck does require a little bit of finagling. So, of course, I'm not going to recommend that to anyone who's just like, hey, I want to be able to have a way to play some of this stuff either in another room or limited to a limited aspect on the go. I think the PlayStation Portal is definitely punching above its weight, it seems like, at this point. And it's pretty impressive they were able to kind of get to this point. All right, let's move ahead here to the next story. GTA 6 and Switch 2 will help video game industry rebound in 2025, Analyst predicts. This is from Eddie McHugh at GameSpot. I know we've done this story a lot, everybody, but I just want to always kind of keep checking in on this, see how we're feeling. The U.S. video game industry is expected to experience revenue declines in 2024, but a new report predicts 2025 will see the business bounce back, due in part to Grand Theft Auto 6 and Switch 2. Circana's Future of Games report, released today, said the video game industry matured in 2020 and 2021 as people turned to games to have fun and stay connected with friends and family during the pandemic. The number of people playing video games and the time spent playing continues to fall behind the all-time highs achieved in 2021, Circana said. The downturn is attributable, in part, to inflation on everyday items people need to live, like groceries, which in turn has left less money available to the average person to spend on gaming, Circana said. For 2024, video game hardware revenue is expected to continue to decline, due in part to the total number of units sold and their average prices declining. People have shifted some of their playtime to more accessible platforms like PC and mobile, and this has helped offset some of the declines in the console market, Circana said. This will continue to be a difficult year for video game manufacturers and publishers, as an overall spending decline, albeit in the low single digits, is expected Piscatella said. He said he's still thinking down 2.2%. I think I said that earlier, but just to reiterate, on Twitter, he was like, hey, really good month this month. Things are looking, brighter than they were, but overall still expecting down 2.2%. Looking ahead to 2025, though, Piscatella said the U.S. video game industry is poised for a rebound. GTA 6, which is among the most anticipated games of all time, along with the massively hyped Switch 2, should help the video game industry's fortunes in 2025, Piscatella said. Britton, I don't think there's any argument that the Switch 2 and Grand Theft Auto 6 won't be an inflection point for the industry in some way. Clearly, we're headed towards that. I think the underlying question that I have is this industry really in a decent place if this is what we're talking about? If we continue coming back to we're waiting on these games to sort of solve our problems or new systems, is that good? Because it feels like we have so many good games coming out all the time, so much work going into every single release, and there's multiple a month. It felt like this entire year that just are like amazing and blowing me away. And it feels like the growth should just be organically coming from people like looking over and seeing that looks amazing and wanting to be a part of that. And yet we keep talking about needing Grand Theft Auto 6. How do you read this situation?
I don't love it when looked at through that lens, because it feels like we're kind of back in where we were early 2000s, 90s. We're like, oh, there's just a few tentpole things that the big developers release, and you don't have all these amazing indie games. And like, there's just so much to play now, and so much of it is incredible. And the barrier of entry usually, at least to us, feels so low.
Right.
We can say like, hey, this great thing on Steam is $15. Go check it out. But then there are the people that you have to explain, like, well, what is Steam? What is the, like, even if it's something like that's on Netflix's service, you have to explain, okay, well, if you use the Netflix app on your phone, then you can download this like Golden Idol thing. It's really cool. Like, just trust me. I don't know. As someone who like thinks about the mainstream non-gaming market a lot, since that's who I used to write for a lot, it's tough to imagine how to fix the problem there, I guess. Like, Nintendo usually does it better than almost anyone else, and it's great to me when I think they have branched out a little bit more, where you see stuff like Hades being a huge success on the Switch, that where usually you think of just Nintendo stuff as the Nintendo games. So I can see why so many people are looking to the Switch 2 as Gandalf coming over the ridge. Like, it's going to be okay, everybody. We're good. But I also agree with you that it feels like maybe we shouldn't be resting all our hopes on one or two things. It's not great, and I don't know what the solution is.
Yeah, and really, maybe there is no solution. I think what I'm starting to realize as we even have this conversation is, to most people, video games is not the thing where it's like, hey, that new system comes out, I'm gonna go get that system, and whatever comes out for it, I'm going to be looking out for that. To them, video games has always been, actually, and I think we've seen this with Fortnite and Call of Duty and a number of games that like become people's hobbies. It's that one game that they want to go be playing. That's why Grand Theft Auto 6 is this massive thing, this lightning rod, because that's been the game for so many people for so long now that they're like, okay, when that new one comes out, I will reappear and be ready to play games again because I'm thinking about that game. They're not thinking about the way that I think I have throughout most of my life, where it's like, this is the hobby, I'm excited to have the hardware, the new thing comes out for the hardware, that's just the new thing that makes this thing feel special to me. Except for, I think the one exception is the Switch. Nintendo has been able to maintain that sort of aura about its hardware, which is why the Switch 2 is also another thing. Obviously, PlayStation was huge, and there's a huge community there. That also happens there. Xbox, maybe to a lesser extent, that stuff does happen there. But I think when we compare like how people treat Fortnite and Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto, that feels like the future, and the way people treat consoles feels a little bit like the past, right?
Yeah, I think, though, I realized as you were talking a little bit too, there's some stuff that gives me hope, in that there are those big tentpole games that we don't always anticipate being the big tentpole games. I think Baldur's Gate 3 was a good example of that, where obviously us big nerds were very excited about it. We knew it would be a big deal, but you maybe wouldn't have thought it would be the huge like mainstream success that it was. And I think, looking back to the sales figures from earlier, Elden Ring high on the list. That also, obviously, From Software has been building their fan base steadily for a very long time. But the way Elden Ring was just all over my TikTok for so long was a big deal. It felt like a moment where a lot of people were asking, like, hey, maybe I should get into video games. Maybe I should actually, get one of these newer consoles so I can be part of this group that's playing this stuff. So I think some stuff can still come around to surprise us. I do, and maybe I'm naive. I do still think a lot of it is tied to the consoles. As great as PC gaming is, anytime I talk to someone who is just casual gamer or isn't really into it at all, it's always like, well, what's the easiest way for me to get into this? And that PC is never the answer for that. No, maybe Steam Deck at some point.
Yeah, getting close with Steam Deck,
but
for sure.
It's but if I can, and historically, I've usually said, well, you probably want the Switch, especially if you have a family. They have the most family-friendly games. They also have all this other great stuff. And as the Switch has been at the end of its life, it's been harder to say, yeah, just go get a Switch right now, because I can say, well, if you wait, I don't know, like less than 12 months, at least, probably, right? Maybe you can get another one.
I hope so. Yep. Yeah, I think kind of going forward, it's mostly going to be this messy period where clearly we need hardware, but the industry just feels like it is brute forcing and moving its way toward just games being the platform. And while that can work on PC, you're right, a lot of people are just not gonna. More people than ever are adopting it. More people are appreciating that it's open and it's just going to be what it's always been, and doesn't need a company's interest to make it feel viable and valuable. That does start to feel like the weakness with something like the Xbox at this point, because it's like, yeah, they just feel like they have other priorities. And that taints the way I think the Xbox feels to many people. And so, well, that could happen to any of these companies. Eventually, they just lose interest in this thing, and they see something on the horizon that kind of makes them put the hardware in the rear view mirror. But regardless, people need a way to play these games because the games are the star of the show. And so consoles will still find a way to sell. But I think we are just going to be moving towards a place where people think about the games first and the consoles a distant second. All right. Nintendo ending support for Animal Crossing Pocket Camp, and it will release an offline only version. That's very cool. This is from Haley Williams at GameSpot. Almost 7 years after it launched, Nintendo's free-to-play mobile spin-off Animal Crossing Pocket Camp is shutting down. While the current version of the game will be taken offline on November 29th, 2024, players will be able to continue their progress in an offline version of the game requiring a one-off purchase. Nintendo made the announcement today, giving players just over 3 months to wrap up their affairs in Animal Crossing Pocket Camp. We would like to express our deepest gratitude to everyone who has supported the title since service began. Nintendo's message to players reads, despite the game nearing the end of its lifespan, the announcement added that it will continue to hold events and add items up until the end of service. Unlike other live service games that have been taken offline in recent years, Nintendo is giving players the option to transfer their save data to an offline-only version of the app through the new version, though the new version will require a one-time purchase. Hey, this is what I always ask for. I like that some games are live services. That's fine. I enjoy the idea of something feeling like, hey, every time you check in on it, there could be something new, but nothing lasts forever. Eventually we get to a point where they take these things offline. I want them to be able to just build in from the beginning a button you press that says, now here's the offline version. Doesn't sound like that's even necessarily the case here. Sounds like they're kind of updating it, building it to be offline, but they're doing the work, and I think that's fantastic. What do you think, Britton?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought, I'm curious what this price is going to be, because they say it's going to be a paid app, and what if you have someone who's either spent a ton of money on it, and are they going to say, well, now you want me to spend more money to keep all the stuff I already
sunk cost, though, right?
Yeah, or all the people who never spent a cent, and well, now I have to actually pay money to play it. I don't know. I think it's going to depend a lot on what that price is, but overall, I do think, yeah, this is a great thing that more live service games should have the ability to do. I understand that with a lot of them that are very multiplayer focused, that's a bit trickier. But I would love 10 years from now, maybe more than 10 years from now, but at some point in the future, I would love to be able to say, hey, I can just go experience all that Final Fantasy 15 or 14 content that I never played. Now that the game's offline, I want to just like play it as a single player Final Fantasy game. I would love to be able to do that sort of thing all the time, like long after a game is
I'm just love for the publishers and developers to like expect this to happen eventually and have some contingency plan, a trapdoor where once you pull the lever, the game can just exist down in that little space from now on. That would be ideal. This kind of feels like it should be the standard practices going forward. I don't know how realistic that is. I understand there's probably a lot of developers listening being like, here's A, B, C, D, and many more reasons why we can't do that. But from my perspective as someone that plays these games, I'm sorry, I don't care. I think there is an expectation that these things should, like, we started this show by talking about playing old games. I like revisiting these games. I think that history is important. I think that providing a way for people to see these things in one way or the other, so that those people can go on and take those lessons and apply it to future games when they become game designers. That stuff's important to me. And I hope that we just see more of this. That said,
yeah, absolutely.
Do you think like a lot of people will actually pull the trigger on making this purchase, even if they like were big into it a long time ago? Maybe they haven't played it in a couple years. Do you think they like come back like, oh, let me just pay the money to keep this, or they don't even think about it?
I think there's a good chance that a large number of people will, especially if there's no like time limit. Like if they say, hey, you have 6 months to transfer your stuff and then it's done, and then that may be a problem. But I wouldn't be surprised if a year from now some people are like, what was really fun? That Animal Crossing game on the phone. I should go just pick that up and play it again, especially if it takes a while for Nintendo to put out a new Animal Crossing on the next Switch or whatever. I could definitely see there being an audience for that. And I saw in the comments of this story elsewhere online this morning, people talking about other games where like they had invested time and like, yeah, I was really upset when I just lost all of that, progress, all that stuff I had done, and the game was just gone forever. So this is music to my ears. This is such great news.
Yep. And I know there was a little bit of an effort made, I think in one of the countries in Europe or maybe the EU as a whole, to sort of make this thing that's happening here something that game developers have to consider and maybe even make it required and mandatory. And I think there was a judge that was like, no, they have no obligation to make this stuff available forever. And it's like, man, okay, we're even losing in Europe on this. So like, I get it's an uphill battle and probably very unlikely that this does become the default or the norm. But I want to celebrate it where it does happen. And I just want to see it a little bit more frequently. That would be great at some of these games. Now, yeah, not everything's going to get treated this way, but and I won't even go back and play most of these. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I will say, as someone, you were talking earlier about how I'm like on the product side of things now, working with engineers on a daily basis, there's so much stuff, even just in terms of how websites work, that you're like, yeah, this seems stupid simple, and it like should just be like, it should just work this way. And there's just weird, complex reasons why it can't. So I get it from the development side of things. Like you were saying, yeah, there's probably developers listening that are like, yeah, I would love to make an offline mode of this game, but here's the long list why that can happen. But I would love going forward if someone's making a live service like mobile game or whatever today. Yeah, it would be great if they could build in that switch. Start thinking now. Okay, no game lasts forever, no matter what it is. So at some point, this will have to be shut off. What is the contingency plan when that happens?
Exactly. And yeah, speaking of websites being weird, like, only Jan can upload premium podcasts to the premium feed. We don't know why. We talked to the engineers. They know it's a problem, but he's still the only one that can do it. So one computer in the world, everybody. If that gets shut down, who knows what happens? All right. Let's see here. Microsoft announces, actually, real quick. Sorry about that. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back right after this.
Gummy bear.
Wrong button. All right. I'm going to fade to black again. We'll just cut that out. Oh, I did it again. I'm good at this. What is happening? All right. There we go. There we go. Now I'm fading to black, and I have the right scene selected. This is my first podcast, everybody. Good at podcasting, good at hosting shows. Let's keep it going here. Microsoft announces new Xbox adaptive joystick. This is from Blair Marnell at GameSpot. Gamescom has already unleashed new trailers and game reveals, but for some players, the big attraction was a new Xbox adaptive joystick. Microsoft's new controller is designed to help players with limited mobility jump back into the world of video games. Via the Xbox official site, the Xbox adaptive joystick is a simplified version of the standard Xbox controller that has 4 regular buttons, as well as 2 more buttons that handle the bumper and trigger commands. However, the thumbstick is truly customizable for the needs of individual gamers. Microsoft has already designed a number of different thumbsticks that can be 3D printed and inserted into the Xbox adaptive joystick. At least one of the options allows players to use their chin to control the movement if their hands aren't able to do so. This is pretty neat. They already had the adaptive controller. Obviously, this adaptive joystick now is like really is just what it says. Instead of like mimicking analog handheld gamepad controls, this is like a full joystick, and then you can swap in different joysticks. And they showed how it can easily mount on the equipment that many people that need these sorts of devices already have, and then they can just kind of fit it into there. So like there are many people that do control like their wheelchairs with joysticks, like with their chin. They could just swap that out, swap this in, and start playing games that way. A very cool thing. I always appreciated the adaptive controller, but part of me is like, okay, they'll do this, and then maybe the community will sort of adopt it and take it over and provide the expansions it needed. Because one of the big things with that is it uses that the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack that a lot of these accessibility devices already use. So people are going to be able to customize it to their own needs. It is sort of encouraging for me to see. No, these companies, especially Microsoft, continue to show up and provide new ways and new things of their own. And it's not like they're, doing this for because it's a massive business. They're charging $30 for this thing. It's a very affordable price. So just a really cool, nice thing to keep more people involved in gaming. What do you think?
Very, very good, very affordable. I think I saw that the attachments also they'll just give you the pattern of 3D print. Yep. what you need, which is fantastic. Like that's exactly how that sort of thing should be. Just if you need a thing, just get the thing. I think this is awesome. Every time one of the big companies does stuff like this, it warms my heart. Because gaming should be for everybody, as they say in the video announcing this thing. It's talking about the future a little bit again. It has also made me think a little bit this morning. I feel like Nintendo needs to do this with their next stuff, because Microsoft's been killing it. PlayStation has been edging in there a little bit with their own hardware, and then on the software side, they've been doing a really good job, from my understanding. It seems like Nintendo, weirdly, is the one that hasn't been spending as much time, especially given how much of their history, like with the Wii and everything else. Like, no, everyone should play games. It's surprising that Microsoft is the one that's like really leading the charge here, but
absolutely
really happy to see it and love what they're doing so far.
Yep. And Nintendo's sort of accessibility stuff. It's never in the games themselves. Even they have some stuff at system level, and when you ask them about it, I saw Steven Totillo ask him about it a couple weeks ago, and they're like, "Hey, no, we've added stuff. Here's this and this, and it's the stuff that's been at the system level for a long time." In terms of hardware, like it's strange because it's not like people won't find ways to get these things working on Nintendo hardware. 8BitDo does have that device that you can plug in, a USB dongle you can plug into the Switch that allows you to use other controllers on different devices and stuff like that. So people are probably doing something. Yes, there it is. They're either doing that or they're doing something like that. Probably to get many of these things working on Switch where possible, but that's like there's barriers there and there's complications and remapping stuff. I'm sure is a pain. It would just make sense if Nintendo would just adopt these things. They don't even have to make their own. Just go talk to Microsoft, say, hey, can we just have a thing where this works on our stuff, whatever that requires. If that does require its own specific dongle, whatever. But then once it's plugged in, everything just knows what's happening and it just works. We should just be there, but Nintendo can be weird about these things.
It was, and especially as Microsoft, as we've seen during Gamescom, is getting more and more open to like, hey, no, we're really just going to put our stuff everywhere. It's okay. I would love to see if they just adapt this as like, no, this is part of our mission. We're going to make this great hardware that benefits a lot of people. And, if PlayStation wants to talk to us about using it, great. If Nintendo wants to use it, great. Like, let the people who need to use this stuff use it wherever they want. I think that would be the best case scenario.
And it's not like they even need to necessarily go through Microsoft. 8BitDo is working with Microsoft to make the Lite SE controller, which is kind of a flat gamepad that has all of the buttons for an Xbox controller right there on the face, right next to each other, including the bumpers and stuff. And there's some customizability with that as well. But it's just, this is another option. And it's like, okay, yeah, 8BitDo's already doing this work with Xbox. Just have them take that thing, put a Nintendo logo on it, put the right, radio receiver in there, and you're in business. And then you at least have some option. But again, Nintendo can be very weird and sort of just, I think mostly they just don't think about these things. And it's obvious, and it becomes more obvious when the thinking of these things is like ramped up at these other companies to the point where the list of accessibility settings in a PlayStation games these days is a mile long and has every consideration under the sun, for whether it's color blindness or anything else. And then it just makes Nintendo look even more old fashioned, which of course we know they are. So
yeah,
I hope
I'm glad you brought up the 8BitDo stuff though, because like their Ultimate controller or whatever is so great about being able to. I use that for my Switch controller and I use it on the PC, so it's super great to be able to just use the same thing both places. If they could do that same sort of thing and make some accessibility accessories that like there's just a switch on the back that, and now I'm using this on my Xbox, now I'm using it on the Nintendo platform, that would be awesome. That would be
fantastic. All right, we'll move along here to this next story. Sea of Thieves has reportedly surpassed 1 million copies sold on PlayStation 5. This is from Tom Ivan at VGC. Microsoft's Sea of Thieves has reportedly topped 1 million sales on Sony's system. That's according to Windows Central sources. The Rare-developed game hit the significant sales milestone on Sony's console some time ago. While Xbox hasn't announced sales figures for the game on PS5, there's been plenty of evidence to suggest the $40 game has performed strongly since its release in late April. According to Sony, Sea of Thieves was the most downloaded PS5 game in both the US and Canada and Europe in May. In June, it ranked among the top 5 most downloaded games, and in July, it remained. In June, and then in July, it remained in the top 10. The pirate-themed co-op multiplayer game was originally released for Xbox and PC in March 2018, when it became the first exclusive title for Microsoft to launch on Xbox Game Pass day and date with its retail release. The game has done very well ever since, and it's one of those massive streaming games. So when it came to PlayStation, a lot of that audience was already aware. I think what we could say here, though, is when on the show yesterday, Phil Spencer talked about, hey, we learned a lot from putting games on PlayStation. I think what he learned is we could sell 1 million copies of Sea of Thieves. We should do that for more games. I mean, how do you argue against that at a certain point when it's like, okay, well, the alternative is keep these things exclusive, and we can sell more Xboxes, and then that will bolster our ecosystem. Well, they've done that for a really long time, and things sort of haven't changed. And now they've changed their strategy, and they're selling more video games. It's like, well, one thing works, and the other thing kind of had reached its limit of what was possible and what it could do. I think we could all argue maybe the games they were putting out weren't as world-shattering as they needed to be to make the exclusive strategy work. But whatever, so they don't have those games. They do have this game they could sell right now on PlayStation and sell 1 million copies in no time. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a good indication that they're doing the right thing by dipping their toes into putting their stuff elsewhere. I think back a little bit to when Persona 5, I think it was, finally left PlayStation and like immediately became a bestseller, and it seemed like Sega and Atlas were like, oh, okay.
Yeah, why didn't we think of this before? And everyone's like, yeah, why didn't you do this before?
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully Microsoft's taken the same lesson and realized, okay, yeah, maybe this is a good idea after all, and we should just do more of this. I think would be good. And I think Sea of Thieves is a good fit. I didn't play it as much as I wanted to because I don't have friends. But like it, I'm really happy for Rare because they make good games typically that I enjoy, and I someday will go play that Monkey Island stuff because that sounded fun.
It's a good time. Yeah.
I'm happy that people are enjoying it at more places.
Exactly. Just makes sense. Lego announces first Lego Super Mario Kart sets at Gamescom. It's Super Mario Mario Kart sets at Gamescom. That's weird. This is from Alberto Garrido at Game Reactor. Interestingly, despite the fact that they have long since confirmed that they would not be attending this year's Columbus, Nintendo, which Gamescom, Nintendo had quite a morning on the first day of Gamescom. While the Lego Animal Crossing sets may have been presented in other ways, there are also more Lego Animal Crossing sets. The Lego Group did show off the first sets in Lego's history with Mario Kart. These sets had already been previewed at the March 10th day celebrations, but now we have the full list of sets, pricing, and components. All Lego Super Mario Mario Kart sets will go on sale on the 1st of next year, 2025. The sets are as follows. There's a Yoshi bike, standard cart, Donkey Kong, and DK Jumbo, Baby Mario versus Baby Luigi, Toad's Garage, and Baby Peach and Grand Prix set. And I think all of those are on the Lego site now if you want to go check them out. I always wanted Nintendo Lego, and now there's so many options. I'm like, man, this is kind of too much. I don't know which ones to get. I don't feel like I can get everything. I can't justify that. But it's still cool that they're doing this. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think it's great. I'm a bit surprised and personally disappointed that it's not going to be in time for Christmas because it would have been perfect. I've got a 5-year-old who literally this morning was building Luigi's Mansion Lego stuff. Yep. He's obsessed with Luigi's Mansion. I hear King Boo's name more than any other name in this house right now. But so the Mario Lego stuff has been fantastic for him and for me because I'm a big Nintendo fan and he's the perfect age for it, being 5. So when I saw this stuff announced, I was like, oh, this will be perfect for Christmas, and then realized it's not coming until after Christmas. But it'll be good when it finally comes out. I think some of the Mario stuff, it's tricky for like you and me as people who also like collecting because the Mario stuff is like not as good. It's really geared towards the younger audience. I think this Mario Kart stuff is going to be in the same vein. But since we also have kids who can enjoy like actually playing with the stuff as toys,
that's how I justify it. Yeah, absolutely. I'm like, I'm just getting it for the kids, and they're like, I don't care as much as you do, Dad. I'm like, you don't tell anyone that. All right, that's between us.
I worried that was going to be the case when I first started buying this Mario Lego stuff. I was like, I don't know if this is gonna fly, but no, my son will totally switch out Mario's suits, and it's like they're surprisingly interactive when you have that stuff turned on, and he's catching ghosts and like playing out his own little Luigi's Mansion story with those Lego. So it's cool that they're still doing it.
Well, yeah, I think they do a good job hitting the whole spectrum, right? Because like some of those toys are very good for young kids. Like these builds, slightly older, and then they have the catnip for us olds with like, here's the NES and the TV that you can crank and stuff like that. Yeah, there's right, exactly. Built the Lego Atari sets and stuff. Yeah, that stuff is great too. And I'm like, okay, Mike got me the big Super Mario 64 question block. And things like that. So it's like, okay, I have that for me, and the kids have their stuff. So yeah, they do a good job hitting it all. And yeah, the kids just want a Squidward. Don't worry, Squidward officially gets here tomorrow, everybody. I ordered a Squidward. It's coming. All right, next story. Retroid reveals new Retroid Pocket Mini, a 4x3 handheld. This is from Brendan Salatamacchia at Retro Dodo. It has been a while since Go Retro has launched a product, if you ignore the dock. Their latest being the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro. That went down a treat earlier in the year. But now with the onslaught of mini retro handhelds, Go Retro wants a piece of the pie and has revealed the Go Retro Pocket Mini. This is a 4x3 device featuring what looks like a borderless display, similar to that of the Aya Neo Pocket Micro. It has a glass surrounding the whole face. Basically they give some info. This is an OLED screen, 4x3. It looks really cool. I love these things. They have not said how powerful it is. So my concern is, can I play Dreamcast and GameCube on here? If I can do that, and maybe even like a handful of PS2 games, I'll be very happy, because a 4x3 screen on one of these handhelds, I'm like, I think I'm set on my 16 by 9 ones or the ones that like are closer to a Game Boy Advance screen. I'm good on those now. I am like now looking around for some that would be good to play some of these home console games, retro games. And for those, I think I do want a 4x3 screen. And I think a lot of these it will make a lot of sense if it's powerful enough. Now they're not saying, but I don't know. Are you interested in these devices at all? Did you have any? You got one right there?
Yeah, so I've got the 3.
Yes, the Retroid Pocket 3. Excellent. Yes.
Which I love, and I do a lot of that retro achievement stuff on. So it's fantastic. It is like it's not powerful enough to play like some N64 games, like Mystical Ninja starring Goemon is the one that I keep trying to get working and it won't work. And it frustrates me. So I like every time they announce one of these new ones, I'm like, maybe it's time to get a new one. And I have the exact same requirement where I'd like to play GameCube stuff. Yep. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see, I guess. But I think they're cool devices in general, and I do think the 4x3 screen will be good for a lot of that. So like I play a lot of SNES and NES stuff on mine, Game Boy stuff too, also. But especially with, and maybe it's because I'm just a retro achievement freak at this point. But now that GameCube and PS2 are both in there, I'm like, okay, yeah, like give me a good handheld that'll play that stuff, and I'll spend a lot of time playing those games on a handheld once I find the perfect one.
Yep. And I say, I'm like, I'll get this and this will solve all my problems. And then, of course, I'll start looking for the next one. That's just how it goes. Right. Shout outs to Bailey Myers in chat saying this is the first time that she's been awake for Game Mess mornings, because usually she's on Pacific time. That's way too early. But now she's in Germany, so she's able to catch it there because it's probably almost dinner time there. Congratulations, Bailey, on crushing Dan in the spelling bee. We all knew you could do it. We all knew you would do it. In fact, I don't even need to check the results to know that you are the winner. Well done, everybody. We get B's in chat for Bailey. All right, final story here. Vice presidential candidate Tim Walz, noted Dreamcast lover, was apparently a crazy taxi guy. This is from Steve Watts at GameSpot. Nintendo Governor Tim Walz is preparing to formally accept the Democratic Party nomination for vice president this week at the Democratic National Convention. And just before that happens, we may have learned about his classic gaming habits. Following his selection as the running mate for presumptive nominee Kamala Harris, a profile in the New York Times outed Walz as a Dreamcast fan. Players on the high school football team, where he coached, recalled him sharing stories that the kids found relatable, like when his wife took away his Dreamcast because he played it too much. Naturally, this sparked speculation about what game had hooked him so deeply. IGN reports that it tracked down a series of subsequent owners of Walz's Dreamcast, tracing it back to a man named Tom Johnson. Johnson worked as an intern for Walz's congressional campaign, and one day Walz brought in a box of personal items he had planned to donate, but that the interns might like to use instead. Among them was a Dreamcast, which went mostly unused in the congressional office, which, that's a red flag right there. If the Dreamcast is sitting there, someone needs to be playing it. Johnson ultimately took the Dreamcast home with him and then to college, and said that he recalls seeing a copy of Crazy Taxi already sitting in the system when he took it. So the idea being, Tim Walz brought it in, it had Crazy Taxi in it. No one played it until Tom Johnson took it home and saw that Crazy Taxi was in there. And that sounds about right to me. Tim Walz seems like a guy that'd be like, man, I always wanted to be a cabbie. This is fun, and I'll just get in here and drive around. What do you think?
He does have that energy for sure. I was personally hoping he'd be a big Choo Choo Rocket fan. So I mean, maybe still, we don't know for sure. So I can keep that dream alive a little bit. Maybe not a PSO player.
Definitely Shenmue though, right?
Who wasn't?
Yes,
though?
Exactly.
I mean, of course, the biggest thing in the world. But this story is true journalism. Like this is why
Rebecca
I do what I do.
Did all this, just incredible work.
Yeah. Very happy that this work was done, and exciting to see. It is kind of. I think the safest bet was probably the 2K football games, right? But that was the boring answer. So it's actually exciting that there's something in there like Crazy Taxi. They're like, okay, yeah, cool. That's a good thing to be spending your time with. Yep.
Crazy Taxi is one I actually played in the arcade more than I actually played it at home. But I should go back and play those Crazy Taxi games some more.
Yeah, I don't know how it was for you, but with me having such a limited budget, I was like, I'm not going to get an arcade game.
That's always what I said to myself. Yes.
Yeah. that's why I got so into RPGs. Like, no, I'm gonna get a good 50 hours out of this thing if I'm gonna spend the money.
Yep.
And Crazy Taxi, didn't fit that bill.
It was always hard to argue to get arcade games at home. Absolutely. I love Crazy Taxi in the arcade though. All right, let's see here. I have the poll question. Let me refresh this real quick, make sure that we are fully updated there. Yes, there we go. All right, this is the one that Sean said I was going to start a console war with, but I'm just curious, everybody, where are you going to be playing Indiana Jones and the Great Circle? Well, 31% said they're going to wait for the PS5 version next year. Quite a big response, but also 31% said they're going to get it on PC this holiday, and 39% are going to get it on Xbox, and that's from 2.2 thousand votes there. How about you, Britton? Are you an Indiana Jones person? Is this something you're interested in?
I'm sometimes an Indiana Jones person. Like when I see one of the movies, usually I'm like, yeah, Indiana Jones is cool. And then like even after Crystal Skull came out, I was like, I'm gonna go buy that Lego Indiana Jones game. It wasn't even that great of a movie. It just was like the vibes were good.
Right.
So I'll probably play it. I've got Game Pass, so I'll most likely just play it there. But yeah, and I love what that studio has done before. I love punching Nazis, so it'll probably be a good time.
Yep. And the previews keep coming out and making it sound more and more promising all the time. Everyone seems to think it's quite impressive so far. So I am building up my hopes. I'm really looking forward to it. All right. New poll question in a second. Before we do that, though, Britton Peele, why don't you tell people one more time where they can find you on the internet, what you have going on, and all that good stuff?
Yeah, so I try to get the Britton Peele handle, BrittonPeele, just about everywhere. I'm still on X as it syncs. I'm on Threads, Blue Sky, all the places. And that's usually where you can find me like actually talking about stuff when I don't bug my giant bomb friends to let me on here on occasion.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. Which I will keep doing as long as y'all will have me.
I always tell people it's like the best way to like, it helps me when people are like, hey, I'm available. Cause I'm like, I can't keep a roster in my head of people. I'm like, who could be on this show? And then someone's like, I could do it. I'm like, oh, thank God. That's always the best. So yeah, keep doing that.
Yeah, I will take advantage of that for sure. Cause I love talking about games. I don't get enough opportunity to do it. I will also, just not as an employee, but just as a, person who likes the media industry, for better and worse. My employer now, Chicago Public Media, is a nonprofit. So if you're in Chicago and you want to get coverage like the DNC and stuff, there's no paywall. We're trying to do the public media thing of taking donations and
providing service.
Yeah, just getting the journalism out to everybody as much as we can. So if you're in Chicago, pick up a copy of the Sun-Times, listen to WBEZ, and you won't see me or hear me there, but I'll be there in spirit because I work behind the scenes.
Whenever I was a huge public radio listener when I was a driver. It was like the default in my car usually. And I listened to a lot of podcasts and stuff and books on tape, but I would audiobooks. I said books on tape. I wasn't actually listening to books on tape. I'm not that old, everybody. But it was public radio was my default. But these days I'm like, always was like, hey man, I haven't heard some stuff like that in a while, or I'm doing some work around the house. When I do want to listen to something like that, I do just tell Google, hey Google, play WBEZ Chicago, and it plays, because that's a reliable way to get one that I know is a good radio, and we'll have all the shows I like. So, yep. Thank you for doing that work. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming on here, by the way. We'll get out here in a second. But first, poll question for tomorrow. When is the last time you played a Nintendo game on a phone or a tablet? Was it this year, last year, 2+ years ago? I don't remember, or never. Those are your options. We'll get the results. We'll talk about them on Game Mess Mornings tomorrow here on Giant Bomb. Speaking of Giant Bomb, it's going to be shaky for the rest of the day. I got a thing with the kid right in the middle of the day. School's, that's weird when it starts. You got to like take him to stuff at 2 p.m. I don't know what's going on there, but I got to handle that. So schedule is going to be pretty shaky today. Might pop back on later if I find the time and the energy to do so. But voicemail dump truck will be happening from Germany. Jan hasn't said he's not doing it, so he must have figured out something there. He was going to try to figure out how to do that from the road. That bombcast they did earlier from his hotel room is spectacular. They did such a good job. There's a lot of great stories from their travel to kick off the first 30 minutes of that episode. You're not going to want to miss any of that. So go listen to that in the meantime. Tomorrow, Killer Clowns from Outer Space. We'll be playing that. I think we're going to get Emma on there with me, Sean, and Nikki. We're going to play through some of that probably around 1 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. Of course, Game Mess mornings as well. And then, let's see, we'll probably do a BCR as well. Yeah, I think I will. I'll figure out how to throw that together. All right, Britton Peele, thank you so much for hanging out with me today and talking about video games, man. I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate you. It's always a blast. Hope to come back someday.
Absolutely. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching. You're the best audience in gaming. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye. DJ Astets. Okay, we are